On February 2026, Pakistan's Defense Minister, Khwaja Asif, stepped up to a microphone and declared an open war. Look at Pakistan's history, and you'd naturally assume he was talking about India. But the military wasn't looking east. They were looking at their western border. Pakistan was declaring war on the Afghan Taliban. For decades, Pakistan's own intelligence agency, the ISI, funded, trained, and armed these exact fighters. They built the Taliban. The alliance was celebrated openly. When the Taliban retook Kabul in 2021, Pakistan's Prime Minister at the time, Imran Khan, announced that the Afghans had finally broken the, quote, chains of slavery. 5 years later, Pakistani jets are dropping bombs on the very proxy army they spent 30 years building. This chart shows terrorism-related deaths inside Pakistan over recent years. In 2024, the death toll sat at roughly 2,200. By 2025, that number jumped to over 4,000, almost double. On the ground, civilians are bearing the cost. Neighborhoods are reduced to rubble, and an average of 100 people are dying every single week in the crossfire. Hospitals are being attacked, and thousands are dead because of a single geopolitical deal struck back in 1994. In the mid-90s, Afghanistan was consumed by civil war. Pakistani intelligence officers approached a madrasa teacher named Mullah Omar with an offer: weapons, cash, and training to take over the country. Pakistan called this strategic depth, installing a friendly proxy government next door to serve as a buffer against India. The operation worked quickly. With ISI funding and a steady stream of recruits pulled from Pakistani religious schools, the Taliban successfully occupied Kabul by 1996. But a massive problem was brewing inside those exact same religious schools. Students who had fought alongside the Afghan Taliban formed their own offshoot, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP. Except they had a different goal. They wanted to overthrow Pakistan's elected government and enforce strict Sharia law at home. Pakistan weaponized religious extremism for foreign policy, only for it to mutate into a domestic terror group. The TTP turned their guns inward, executing horrific attacks against the Pakistani public, including the slaughter of 132 children at a Peshawar army school in 2014. By 2026, Pakistan's military had enough. They handed the Afghan Taliban a clear ultimatum: wipe out the TTP safe havens operating inside Afghanistan or face direct military strikes. This diagram illustrates the impossible calculation facing the Taliban in Kabul. If they crush the TTP, those thousands of radicalized fighters won't simply lay down their weapons. Intelligence shows they will defect and join ISIS-Khorasan, or ISIS-K. ISIS-K is the Taliban's fiercest rival in the region. Absorbing the TTP would swell their ranks, creating an existential threat to the Taliban's grip on power. So the Afghan Taliban is structurally forced to protect them. Pakistan's oldest proxy is actively shielding the exact terrorists slaughtering Pakistani citizens. The breaking point arrived in mid-February 2026. A string of lethal TTP ambushes on border checkpoints pushed Pakistan to retaliate with heavy airstrikes. In response, the Taliban launched an organized cross-border military offensive. Pakistan escalated the conflict instantly. They bombed targets in Paktia, Kabul, and crucially, Kandahar. Kandahar is the spiritual birthplace of the Taliban and home to their secretive supreme leader. It was a calculated message that no one was safe. Then came March 16th. During the month of Ramadan, Pakistani jets dropped bombs near an addiction treatment hospital in Kabul. Over 400 people died, including children. The international outrage was so severe that Pakistan had to temporarily halt airstrikes until the Eid holiday. Both governments have spilled too much blood to back down. Compromising means losing legitimacy in their own people. Guaranteeing this temporary pause will collapse. Militarily, Pakistan faces an impossible math problem. They completely control the airspace, but air superiority doesn't win wars without a ground invasion, and a ground invasion is suicide. Look at this terrain. The sprawling, rugged mountains of Afghanistan are practically engineered for asymmetric guerrilla warfare. It is the exact landscape where the Taliban bled out the Soviet Union for 10 years and the United States for 20. Military experts expect an endless cycle of border skirmishes and fragile ceasefires. It is a war of attrition, where neither side can gain enough ground to force a surrender. This deadlock exposes the structural failure of Pakistan's original goal for the Taliban, to use Afghanistan as a tool to isolate India. While Pakistan pursued military control, the Taliban began seeking economic stability through a different partner. They have moved to secure trade agreements and infrastructure contracts with New Delhi, viewing India as an essential economic ally. Today, the very group Pakistan built to block Indian influence is awarding Indian firms major construction projects across the country. The proxy weapon forged to neutralize India has turned back on its creator. Islamabad is now bombing the same border it once paid to protect, while the Taliban uses Indian investment to rebuild a nation that is no longer a buffer, but an enemy.